Attention Austin musicians and music industry professionals. Are you having a difficult time navigating these waters, especially after the coronavirus and all the clubs have been closed? You don't know what to do? Well, let me tell you about a great resource for you. That's the Austin Music Foundation. Austin Music Foundation provides ongoing artist development services through its educational panels, one-on-one consultations, and online resources. Now listen, gang, all of that stuff is available to you, the artist or music industry professional, for free. And since coronavirus hit back in March and everything is closed down, Austin Music Foundation had the forethought to move all of their programs online. That's right, you can watch panels online, you can do your consultations online. Austin Music Foundation is there for you, and it's all free to you, the artist. Just go to austinmusicfoundation.org. That's austinmusicfoundation.org. Get involved.
You gotta open the vault.
Open my vault?
Open your vault.
Once I open the vault, it ceases to be a vault.
You have no choice.
Wait, the vault.
How did I get here from the vault? And now, here's your host, Johnny Dowdy.
All right, hello, I'm Johnny. I'm your host, and welcome to another episode of How Did I Get Here from the Vault, where we go back into our vault of over 950 episodes, over 9 years of shows, pull one out, shine it up, and put it back on display for you. Today, we will be going back to episode 472 from March 15th, 2016, with one of my favorite people and definitely one of my favorite drummers in the whole world, Mr. Brannen Temple. You might know Brannen from his own bands, Temple Underground, Black Red Black, Blaze, all of these bands. What was it? Hot Buttered Rhythm. Remember that band from the 90s that he had with JJ? What a great band. You also might know him from his work with Sheena Easton, Eric Johnson, Janet Jackson, the Dixie Chicks, Boz Skaggs, and many more. I had the pleasure of spending Monday, Labor Day, with Brannen Temple, legendary Brannen Temple. I got to do an interview with him on stage and everything in Smithville. It was wonderful. Always great to reconnect with my dear friend Brannen. I love this dude. So, gang, on episode 472, I was asking Brannen about some of his influences, and he goes back to a lot of jazz guys. And when he realized I didn't know about jazz guys, this turns into like a masterclass in jazz dudes. So it's loaded with information, how he's gotten his gigs, how he's kept his gigs, what these gigs have been like, and kind of his journey as a musician. Such a great conversation, such a wonderful man, such a wonderful human being. I love Brannen Temple, so please enjoy. From March 15th, 2016, episode 472, Brannen Temple.
How did I get here from the vault?
No. I do it so that I don't forget certain things that I want to ask, and there's so much that I want to ask you. You just went to Japan, right? Like in November or October?
Yeah, November. I was over there, and it was crazy because I was in Paris, like less than 2 weeks before that, when the whole
oh, you were?
Yeah, when the whole thing happened over there. And one of my buddies was a sound man, really good sound man, and he lost a friend in that Bataclan, that one club, who was also a sound man, a light designer, actually. And so that guy didn't make it. So it was really stressful to be sitting there and realize, holy, shit, I was just there.
Yeah. And
that's one thing that's the world is really small in that way, because thankfully it's our all of our peers, and ourselves included, we get to experience life in like different ways traveling,
Hang on a second. Sorry.
Cool. Was that? I have aunts that are, here, and cousins and stuff. People that are in Austin. So.
Right. So you were saying that how you were affected.
No. Well, I just wanted to say that beyond that one particular thing. I mean, you and I and all of our musician peers, we get a chance to, live our dreams, basically. I mean, we travel and perform and do a lot of things that a lot of people are not as fortunate to be able to do. They may have more money than us,
Right.
But, to be able to do what you love and have fun,
Yeah.
But, I get a chance to see a lot of really interesting things and go to a lot of interesting places, even though I might not be the sightseer. I don't see everything once I'm there, but to have a link there in Paris, for instance, when all that happened, and that guy was one of the first people that I called. I have several friends there, so I communicated with each of them to make sure, hey, where are you? What's going on? How are your people? What's happening? But it was a stressful time, but I guess on the other side of it, it's awesome too to have the connections, and to have a lifestyle that, where I get to have those bridges, and to share people from other cultures, people that have nothing to do with my life in Austin,
right?
And their mentality is not like the lives of people in Austin, and you know what I mean. So it's like it's a really beautiful.
You've been afforded the opportunity to meet those people because you're a musician and you get to travel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't know them,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because jazz has been so strangely marginalized, and it's such like a niche thing in America. And it seems like in Europe, it still has more vitality. Does that make sense? I don't mean it as a musical form. I just mean the way that people consume it, or even find it or get into it.
That's a tough one, man, because you're right in a lot of ways, because most of one of the artists that I perform with on a regular basis, her name is Liz Wright, and she's been around in the industry maybe 12, 13 years, and she's major deal, Verve Records to Concord Records, which is it's like a lower company to maybe Sony or somebody like that. I can't remember who owns Concord. I'm sorry, but she's virtually unknown here,
right?
And although she's not an let's call a traditional jazz, authentic jazz, straight ahead jazz artist, most of our gigs are jazz festival, jazz oriented gigs,
right?
And for the Europeans to embrace her as well as many other artists, most of the lives of these musicians, their careers are realized presently in Europe.
Yeah,
so the audiences are there, the infrastructure is there,
right.
The promoters, the clubs, the festivals, the fans, everything is really suited more for them, for their entertainment, for their enjoyment. And even a lot of let's say jazz artists are sort of known almost say I won't put on the same level, but like a pop artist, maybe not like a Katy Perry or something like that, but there's a gentleman by the name of Gregory Porter, who's a vocalist, really, really stellar, younger male vocalist, in his mid-40s, early 40s, mid-40s, who German market, completely embraced him. And, you could hear this cat on ads, see his music, hear his music on ads, and it'd be filtered behind the Weather Channel in Germany. Right. You know what I mean? So it's so there's an avenue there for those types of artists to express themselves, and work.
Yeah. What do you think happened in America with like what
Oh, man, that's a whole
too much stuff.
Yeah,
too much information coming at us.
I'd say what really happened in America with jazz, and this is just my personal opinion, my own humble opinion. It has nothing to do with fact, But I feel like on one level, the invention of bebop was a demise of swing music becoming the most popular music, because at that time, all the bands like the Duke Ellingtons, the Count Basies, the Benny Goodmans, all these groups like this that were widely spread, and for every 3 or 4 of those bands, there were about 50 other working bands very similar.
Right.
Large groups, large ensembles. Of course, you had the World War II, where a lot of people got sent off, got deployed,
Right.
And once the war was over and people came back to work, well, the infrastructure was different, where all the money had been distributed for wartime.
Right.
So band leaders were sort of forced to have smaller bands. So there were more out-of-work musicians.
Huh.
This is what happened with a lot of these swing guys. And pretty much that's all
bands
there
were
was.
huge.
Yeah, you're talking, 17 to 25 piece bands. One-nighters.
Yeah.
In a bus. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so there was that infrastructure with union and union dues and hotels. Everybody was accustomed to that lifestyle in America. People that went to go see music, you had supper clubs. You had, these. It was a vibe. It was the whole thing.
Yeah.
So then once, let's say, musicians like Max Roach and Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie and Thelonious Monk and these types of people started creating music that was centered more around the idea of a smaller group.
Right.
Then it changed the face of the sound. It changed how people heard the music. One of the most unknown artists worldwide, of course, in the jazz world we know him, but one of the biggest catalysts for this change was a drummer. Two different drummers. There's Kenny Clarke and there's Max Roach.
I know Max Roach, but I don't know Kenny Clarke.
And so Kenny Clarke was around the same time as Max Roach, and he was lesser known because he was a musician that he wasn't as band leader savvy as a Max Roach. He was a supporter.
Right.
But how he supported the musicians was in a new language that had to basically what it did was it gave the drummer more responsibility as opposed to just going
Right.
like a Chank rhythm guitar that just played ting 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 ting
Right.
ting ting ting, change,
Yeah.
changing chords every 2 beats,
Right.
Where that function was no longer necessary. You wanted more identity based on the soloist.
Right.
So the soloist became the star. And now at this point, the language became more special in terms of if you had a side or a record or like a Duke Ellington or a Count Basie record where it was a little more through composed. So most of these tunes were show tunes.
Right.
So the majority of the record, which could have been like 2 minutes long, it was the lyric from the show tune.
Right.
Played in an instrumental fashion.
Right.
So now you have a musician like a Charlie Parker who might take those show tunes,
right,
but now gives you the first verse of it, but then takes the ideas and expounds on them.
Right.
So you can't sing along with that.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it changes the listener's experience.
Right.
So at that point, either you're on board or you're left in the dust. So at this whole point, you still have big bands, but now you have a new sensation.
Yeah.
Of bebop music, and that bebop music took out on like wildfire. It was great for a solid, let's say, 5 to 10 year period.
Okay.
You know, Miles Davis
Like the
then took
50s.
it further.
Yeah.
Yeah, with having, you know, really infamous quintets, and slowed the changes, the amount of changes down, slowed the added more emotion, more emotional content.
The best example of that comes to my mind is John Coltrane, My Favorite Things.
Sure,
like that's a song you grew up singing at Christmas, and then all of a sudden you hear this tune, and it's 10 minutes long, and it's like, oh, okay,
it's a whole different trip, it's a whole different vibe. Cats like Coltrane, Miles Davis, you know, these musicians were explorers. You know, they were inventors of how to take what was in their hearts and their spirits and share it. You know, that's a different concept than like even the vocalists of the day, even the Sarah Vaughns and the Ella Fitzgeralds and the the other Doris Days, or singers like this, who were singing songs that were tested, true Americana songbook tunes, which is not to say that they were not putting their own personal stamp, their own personal emotion, but if you look at the times, it was still America didn't roll on that individualism aspect. You know, at that time, I was just listening to something on the way over here on NPR about how even like 100 years ago and thusly, like in the political climate, every time there's a new presidential election, there's always some candidate that wants to bring America back to where it was. Okay, so we're dealing with this right now, but this one journalist was saying, well, that's always been the case. You've always had people that say, we're going to take America back. We're going to bring America. Now, in that newscast, this gentleman was also saying how most Americans were either farmers or factory workers. You know what I mean? So 100 years ago, 50, let's say 100 to 50 years prior. People were... It's not like now where everyone is an independent, managing, proprietary person. You know what I mean? Self-employed,
Right. There were like unions kind of stuff like that.
Yeah. You never heard of that kind of thing. So everything's changed, including the music.
Yeah.
So now we have, and then when Prince hit, after hearing, the music of Hendrix and Sly and Miles and Earth, Wind and Fire and everybody else. And then you had one guy who did everything really well by himself. Prince was like the prototype for the self-made powerhouse, the musician, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, Stevie Wonder, same thing. Stevie, even though he started in Motown, where it was all formulaic writers and musicians and producers, he was like, I can do all of this. Yeah. And so they finally went out on a limb and said, we'll prove it. Yeah. And he did, you know. So, but we're in a time now where it's easier. Like just the mere fact that you're talking to me today. Yeah. I'm a drummer. Yeah. A drummer, right? Yeah. So think about the drummer's role in the band. Systematically, it's the person there that is there to support everything else. Is said to lay the foundation, the framework, right? For the entire band, for the vocals to do their thing, for the harmonies to do their thing, for the beat, all of that stuff. The drummer is just kind of like, you think of it as a background instrument. But now in this day and age, even 50 years ago with Max Roach and other drummers like Tony Williams, or drummers that have taken the leadership role. So like now, drummers as leaders, even if they are not in the front of the stage, more often than not are handling much more of the business responsibility, much more of the promotional responsibility, and a lot of times much more of the compositional responsibility. Yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
I worked with a drummer that, the first single that I ever had, like on a major label. He wrote all the music, like the arpeggio guitar shit and everything. Were you friends with Bill Loeffler? Did you know him?
Who's that?
Bill Loeffler?
Yeah, I know Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's great. So let me ask you this: when you were a kid, how were you exposed to this jazz? Like what was going like?
Pretty much my pop, because my dad is like, my dad's like Georgia born, but grew up in New York City.
Okay.
So age 2 moved to Jersey, and then thusly, shortly thereafter they moved to the Bronx, which he stayed there until he was about 18. So when you're talking about the Bronx in the 50s, from the 30s to the 50s, that was the beginning of the idea. Well, not the beginning, but it was a heavy melting pot at that point, But the neighborhoods were very segregated. Yeah. But there were, Irish neighborhoods. There were Cuban neighborhoods. Right. But the thing is that my dad knew all of these people through either sports, which my dad was a athlete, a collegiate, a celebrated collegiate athlete, and locally, because he went to school at Houston Tillerson.
Oh, awesome.
But, in the 50s. So, but he was also exposed because he was a kid in the street hanging out, so he knew he would go, he liked to dance. So he would tell me stories, like even now, he tells me stories about going to, some of the clubs, and they're just dance clubs. Yeah. That's all. There was no alcohol. It was just go there to dance. Yeah. And so, but you're dancing to like Cuban bands or Cuban records. Right. So when my pop came here in like 1955, I believe. Nobody knew how to do the mambo in Austin, Texas. No, the mambo didn't exist. So my dad knew how to mambo. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? A 19-year-old black kid from the Bronx showing people how to mambo. They were like, "What the hell is that?" And then like the way he played basketball was much more advanced. It's like now, the invention of TV and when we were kids, we saw Dr. J and these types of amazing athletes. But now, you got everything. We got YouTube. We have every way we can imagine to gain the knowledge and the know-how. Yeah. But my dad, when he grew up, everybody played like him there. But when he came to Texas, nobody played like he played. Right. And they almost thought he was playing dirty because he was doing stuff that you do in the East Coasters, the Northerners. They played and they did things in a very different way. Even now, when you and I, if we travel to New York, if you see bands that are even within our age bracket, but they are New York based. They have a different way of playing than we do in Texas. Yeah, it's like a colloquialism, musical colloquialism. Exactly. So these things, just imagine how much more they existed then. Yeah, because there were no records that came down here. Right. There was no athletes that really came down here. There was not the politics were different. Everything is different. Yeah. So anyway, he got a chance to see all of those groups. So he was very familiar with the music of the jazz musicians of the time. Right. My dad also knew classical music. So one of my older sisters, whose birthday is this week, I have two sisters, their birthdays are this week. One of which became an orchestral major at playing violin in Denton's North Texas. Yeah. In the late 70s, and it was almost unheard of to have a black female in the top orchestra in North Texas. Yeah, yeah. And she made it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so but her influence was from my dad as well. So the first records, and I mean records, that he brought me were jazz records. It was a Lionel Hampton live jazz record, and Max Roach, Basin Street that had Clifford Brown on trumpet, and and Clifford was one of Max's main collaborators. At one point before he died in a car accident. But and Clifford only died at age 25, which is amazing, and for him to be so well documented and so important. But my dad knew all of that stuff, and the combinations of like Machito and Tito Puente and all the artists of the day.
Yeah.
What's the one? Bang bang, bang bang. It's like it's not Machito. Sorry, that's Joe Cuba.
Okay.
Joe Cuba.
Yeah.
Okay, so like all those records that were sort of, let's call them the crossover hits of the day.
Yeah.
They were being played in those Cuban clubs, but they were also, maybe being played on certain radio stations at certain times. You think about radio when we were growing up. Where'd you grow up?
I like in Houston. I lived here a little
Texas,
bit here.
though.
Yeah.
Okay, so Houston
Florida.
always had more forward radio than Austin ever did.
Yeah.
Still to this day,
Yeah.
on all levels. But radio, but I say in air quotes, but in the 70s, those stations really mixed things up. Like we'd hear, Fleetwood Mac and Stevie Wonder play right after each other. You know what I mean? It wasn't like the R&B music over to the right and the rock music.
Right.
We hear Cat Stevens and then maybe hear Charlie Pride and then turn around and hear, you know what I'm saying? We heard all of these mixes, you know. And so, but that was going on the East Coast in the 50s, and it had been happening.
Right.
And their music was always more forward. It's always been more of a cultural mecca, in a sense.
Yeah.
So that's always been a really cool thing. So anyway, my influences for all music pretty much came from my dad, whether it was, James Brown, Al Green, the Motown stuff, the Stax records.
Right.
Or the classical stuff. My dad was a Stravinsky fan, and it was at one point, a lot of people don't know this, but my pop's like super gregarious, person, and very well respected. But there was a gentleman by the name of Rod Kennedy.
Oh yeah.
Did you know?
I know
Rod?
I know who he was.
So Rod used to do the.
That's the Kerrville guy.
He used to do Kerrville.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rod knew my dad from when my pop was he had to leave college because he's family. He and my mom started a family, so he was working several jobs. So one of the jobs he had was I think cooking at one of the UT frat houses, and I think Rod may have been a student, like they were close in age.
Oh, really?
So Rod passed away, but my dad is still alive. My dad will be 82 this year.
Oh, wow.
So in May, and they got to talking. My pop knew all this music, classical stuff, and my dad has an incredible like subtenor voice. Not a singer, just a speaking voice.
Right.
So he was like, "Oh my gosh, man, yeah, I need to get you on the radio." And he's like, "You could DJ. I'll give you a 30-minute segment." And he was like, "Well, we're talking 60s, early 60s. It's like it's still Austin, Texas, still very segregated, you know." And this gentleman was talking about putting my dad on the radio. And he's like, "Well, my pop's first thing was like, well, I can't do that. Black man on the radio." He's like, "Well, nobody's gonna know you're black. It's the radio. Who's gonna care?" So he's like, "Okay." So the only reason why my dad didn't do it was because it wasn't paying any money, and he had kids. He's like, "I can't do that for free,"
Yeah.
And but he really wanted to do it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But the point is that my pop was exposed to incredible amounts of music in New York when he grew up, and he always kept that love up for music. throughout his life, still. So those were the influences.
Yeah. So you said when you started playing drums when you were 10, did you ask for the drums or did they give you the drums? You know what I'm talking about?
My first kit was actually from my brother-in-law, the same sister that went to NT. She eventually, her first marriage, and he passed away a few years ago too, was to this gentleman named Victor Holmes. And Victor was the drummer at the church I grew up in. So the first drum set I ever saw was this orange sparkle 4-piece little kit. And I remember I can see those drums in my head today, right?
Yeah.
And ironically, that was the first drum set that I also played on.
Wow.
'Cause they got married.
Yeah.
And at that point, he wasn't really dealing with music. And he just gifted me the drums. And so that was the kit I learned on. They were it's like an off-brand, like a knockoff of a Sears brand, And come to find out that all of these drums for like drum nerds were they're like mahogany shells.
Yeah.
So all of the little cheapy kits that that you like to hear, they were all like Japanese, like pearl, pre-pearl drum sets.
Wow.
And glue gum made mahogany shells. And like they're really warm, they're really soft sounding. They're not like the drums of today, like the DWs and the stuff where they're manufactured to project over guitars and amplification was not really that big a deal.
Right.
I mean, we all know what happened when the Beatles played Shea Stadium or whatever, Yankee Stadium, whatever it was. They couldn't hear themselves. Nobody could hear them. PA.
I've always wondered about, like, when you see those pictures, you're like, how the fuck did anybody hear anything?
Dude, it's so weird, man. I had this videotape at one point of all these Sly Stone performances. And they did some show. It was a variety show that Ed McMahon used to host. And I don't know the name of the show, but Sly even did a little comedic shtick with Ed McMahon.
Really?
Going into a commercial break, and that was part of this video that I have. But there was a performance, and they're doing a medley of like Dance to the Music and Life and a couple other their early Sly and the Family Stone hits. And I'm watching this, and I'm noticing, dude, there's no monitors on stage, and these cats are on pitch killing.
Yeah. That's what I always say too. I'm like, I'm
like, they're killing. Like, just the idea of it's like, man, I feel like we got soft or something. I don't know what, but maybe that's not the truth, but I just think about
we did get soft. Those fucking guys also would tune their guitars just like this without a tuner.
Yeah. There are a lot of modern technological advances that we are, that we get to deal with, we get to use, but I don't think it's not necessarily brought us further musically or anything like that, but yeah, that's really cool that you could see, because we have this footage, we can go back and see all these bands that played, and even you go back and watch videos of Cream, same thing, man. Cats didn't have monitors.
No.
Playing loud. Yeah. Loud for the day.
Yeah.
They're not, the decibel amounts are nothing like a Metallica or, for lack of a better example, but like they're nothing like the bands of today, and like the obvious concert production value is way less. You see like, those bands like, what was Vanilla Fudge, like, you go back and watch those types of videos and you're like wow, stuff was inventive for what they were doing. Or watch Hendrix stuff, same thing. These cats are playing in front of stacks, and I wonder just how loud was it, because Mitch Mitchell, he didn't hit the drums that hard.
No,
he wasn't a forceful musician, the way he caressed the fills and stuff like that. He you could tell his heroes were jazz guys.
Yeah.
You know, same thing with Ginger Baker. These guys were listening to Max Roach and Elvin Jones,
Right.
and Tony Williams.
Yeah.
You know, so
Is Tony Williams the guy that wore the cowboy hat? He wore a cowboy hat in like the
I think you're
80s and 90s.
You're thinking about Art Blakey.
Really?
So Art Blakey was also an inventor of bebop. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. But Tony
But he's
Williams,
a horn player. Art Blakey, right?
Art Blakey's a drummer.
Oh, okay.
So Tony Williams was he was a sort of a child like prodigy by way of just being sort of a freak of nature.
Right.
You know, like, you know, he like Miles got him in the band before he could grow facial hair. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, you know, 16 years old, he's on Live at the Black Hawk, you know, which is like a seminal record for Miles Davis of that band. And he trusted Miles trusted Tony so much as a kid.
Yeah.
And the way he played, like the way Tony Williams plays and the way Elvin Jones, like those two drummers single-handedly changed the face of modern drumming. I don't mean in jazz. I mean modern drumming
In general.
Period.
Yeah.
Okay. And so their ideas about polyrhythm and subdivision and interaction. You know, of course, you have later people who help sculpt certain things. Like, you know, you could talk about Ringo. You could talk about Billy Cobham. You know, and how, you know, Bill used large drum sets, or how Ringo played for the song, or how John Bonham played. You know, John, you know, all those are good drummers, but they were good because they were band drummers. They supported the framework to make those songs really feel like something.
Right.
You know, to signature licks, signature fills, signature beats.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, but again, all of these guys were influenced by Tony Williams,
Right.
and Max Roach,
Right.
and Elvin Jones. So Tony was the first drummer really to realize how to express himself in an acoustic and electric way. So when Hendrix and the rock bands of, like, say, all that stuff that was sort of budding in the San Francisco Bay Area, you know, where, oddly enough, Frosty was a part of that.
Right,
you know,
right.
Who was our one of our local heroes around here.
Yeah.
You know, for me, my opinion.
Me too.
You know, so all of that stuff that was coming out of there, Miles Davis saw that and was like, holy crap, you know, this is some amazing shit. I need to jump on board. Well, his drummer was already doing that. His drummer had a trio with an organist and a guitar player. Unheard of.
Yeah.
You know, Tony Williams' Lifetime band. And a lot of the cues for modern rock came from these guys.
I need to go
You know,
back and listen to that.
from
Yeah.
the Bitches Brew era,
Yeah.
which Miles basically, when you listen to that record, for a lot of people, it can be a hard listen because it's like, well, what the fuck? This is 25-minute tune.
Yeah.
But what they did was Miles took basically two different rhythm sections into the studio and just more so cataloged an idea. He didn't go in thinking, I want to play these tunes and I'm going to release this as a tune. It was like, this is a form of expression that's not been done. And it was a searching element to the entire 4-day session where the tapes just ran continuously. So when you hold the Bitches Brew record, not the box set that has all 4 days, but when you hold the CD or the record, those are edits.
From those days.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, T.O. splice it together. So
Right.
he's like the fifth Beatle in a sense. You know,
Right.
he put those records together out of, and that was the difference between us now as musicians who, you know, look at your setup. I'm in your crib.
Yeah.
You're also the engineer. You're also
Yeah.
the producer.
Yeah.
You're the songwriter. You're modern. You know, back then those guys had one job.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Miles Davis played the trumpet.
Yeah.
And said, T.O., you do the rest.
Yeah.
You know, so there was a team of people. And then, me and Roscoe Beck would talk about this, man, like back in the 50s and the 60s, when you showed up to a recording session, you had a suit and tie.
Yeah.
It was like you going to work.
Yeah.
And the engineers had white lab coats on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like these were respected positions. It was a respected time.
Yeah.
So anyway, coming out of that and seeing the psychedelic phase that happened in the music in the 60s and on the West Coast, especially in the Bay Area, Los Angeles, and all these different places, and then the free love movement that came out, like all of that stuff, where the music became psychedelic and free.
Yeah.
So that sort of gave people like Tony Williams and Miles Davis their cues to explore.
Right.
Because they felt the shit was stale that they were doing.
Right.
Come up to the mic, put the horn in my mouth and play, and then wait for accolades from somebody to tell me that I did a good job, and then I go back and wait until it's my turn to play again. He's like, that's some bullshit. I don't want to do that anymore. So for more and more, Miles Davis in particular would stay on stage so that he was a continuous part of the music. Yeah. He didn't go off to the side of the stage so that the other cat could do something. He would stay and direct or play keys or, play behind or just like be a presence, And but he got all his cues from his one of his wives, Betty Wright, who was Betty Davis, and Betty was from Oakland, so she was all into Black Power stuff,
Right.
And so, but she knew Sly, she knew Jimmy,
right,
and so she was taking him. She got him new clothes. He threw away the suits, Brooks Brothers, and started sporting blue jean suits.
Yeah.
With psychedelic, shades and, all kinds of, his garb changed, so his sound changed, his identity, ideals changed, and, but a little known fact is that he stole a lot from Tony Williams, including his guitar player. So Tony Williams' band was Larry Young on organ and John McLaughlin on guitar. John was British.
Yeah.
And they met through bassist Dave Holland, who was another British musician, young guy. And Tony and Dave, hit it off, as did Herbie Hancock and all these, young guys at the time.
Yeah.
And the bass player introduced Tony to the guitar player, brought him over. Miles heard him and stole the band. he stole Larry Young and John, and they're both on Bitches Brew, which is quoted to be the first fusion record.
Right.
Okay, so Miles knew how to put shit together in ways that nobody else did, just because of his sense of exploration and vision.
Do you?
Yeah.
I feel like I get a lot of that spirit from your music that's like your own.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
Exploration. When you go and do like a Sheena Easton or something like that, how is that sort of transformation in your head to learn these parts, to play them? And I know they're probably asking you to play because they want you, but there already is a defined thing there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, true, because it just depends. Let me start out by saying that I always, when I first started playing, it was 6th grade band. Let's start there.
Okay.
And just,
I
will quickly, get to it. But the idea is that in the 6th grade, the minute that they put drumsticks and mallets, for marimba and bells and these types of things in my hand, I immediately identify with it so much that I don't think I ever thought I was going to do anything else.
You play like that. Yeah, you play like there's no other like.
Yeah, but I knew that in the 6th grade.
Right.
I just
weird.
knew it.
Yeah.
I never thought, well, maybe I'll be a doctor. Maybe I'll.
Yeah.
I never had that.
Yeah.
It was always that focus immediately.
Yeah.
In fact, when I first started playing, I didn't realize it, but innately I could sight read. I'd never seen music before. All my sisters played some instruments, so I'd seen music.
Right.
My sister, another sister that played flute, and they could all kind of tinkle at the piano a little bit, you know. But one of my sisters, the one that went to North Texas, she could sight read music, and I remember her buying like song books. We'd go to Straight Music, and she'd buy she bought one time Stevie Wonder, The Secret Life of Plants,
right,
sheet music, and opened it up and started playing it, And so I was sat next to her, and I could see, she's following those. That's how that works, the notes, because she knew it, and she wasn't really playing by ear. She was, okay. So the first time sheet music was put in front of me, I had an understanding of what that meant, So
wow.
I knew what rests were. I knew what quarter notes were, eighth notes, 16. I knew it. I just knew it. Okay, so really quickly, I just sort of, just excelled in that. And in a weird way, before I even got to that point, I was already transcribing records, because I had a record player, and I was sitting in the living room, listening to 33s, listening to 45s at 33 and a half.
Oh, okay.
33 and a third. I'm sorry.
Right,
I was already slowing them down so I could hear what was happening
in the drums.
So, in all the instruments.
Okay.
And it fascinated me to hear how those textures worked. What voices did when you slowed them down, and how the drums. I could hear subtleties that were there.
Grace notes that you wouldn't hear normally.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Completely. So all that stuff I was already doing before I even played drums. Music always fascinated me,
Okay.
So by the time I got to, high school, I was already playing at church, and I had been playing in some community bands, whether it was marching band, a community marching band on the east side, or playing little gigs with one of my first mentors of music, a piano player named Deshaun Boyd, who was a minister of music at the church I grew up in, and he was taking me to these gigs. I'm still in high school playing Anita Baker tunes and playing Stanley Turrentine and Duke Ellington and Cameo and whatever, I'm saying? I'm playing all this weird stuff, and I'm a kid, but nonetheless, I quickly used the tool of visualization. I always saw myself and was conscious of how I carried myself, not only posture wise, but how the music and how my drumming could project. So one of the first records that I checked out that was a live record was the Jacksons. They put out a live record after Michael Jackson did Off the Wall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I just saw a documentary about that.
Okay. So I had so they showed footage on that Spike Lee thing of the Jacksons, but there was a record from that tour.
Yeah.
And the drummer Jonathan Moffett, who was actually interviewed in that piece, I used to dissect his shit top to bottom, and I recognized how he played, how he strongly played the groove and made it feel like the record, if not even better in a way, because it was live, and he didn't have the restriction or. When you're in the studio, sometimes you have to, the best studio musicians play to the mic. If you see a Jim Keltner play the drums, he's super relaxed. Yeah. I mean, it's almost like effortless motion. His grace notes, his wrists are super limber and limp almost, as he's able to move around the kit and do a lot with very little effort. Bernard Purdy. You know what I'm saying? These types of drummers they don't use it's not a lot of arm energy.
Right.
You know, but I never saw that as a young player. You know, of course I saw jazz musicians play with less energy.
Right.
But I had my eyes set on people like Jonathan Moffett, who I would see them just, you know, shirtless, sweating his ass off, man, just, you know, and playing these grooves that were just, oh my God, so good.
Yeah.
So I always saw myself like Jonathan, you know. I actually told him that, you know, since met him, and like, you know, I got to spend time with him. And so when I got those Sheena gigs, like the Sheena gigs and the, you know, Janet and stuff like that, I was already prepared without having ever done those gigs. My mentality was there already, you know, and that's all there is to it, you know.
God, that's such a huge hurdle that most people can't even get past.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I never had to think about it. I just was it, you know. I guess my primary influences musically are kind of off the wall in a way, because you know, they come in shapes and all shapes and sizes. Like, they were people that I came up under, you know. Deshaun, which is one the guy I just mentioned, you know, was heavy influence on me, as was Mr. Kenshin, another gentleman at the church, but then kind of more abstract, iconic people in a weird way were my heroes that were just great at what they did. So that would be Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
That'd be Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
That'd be Miles Davis.
Yeah.
You know, that'd be Dr. J.
Yeah.
That would be, you know what I'm saying? So these people that were great brought me to an idea of reaching high. You know, it's like James Brown. You know what I mean? It's like all those people just made, Michael Jackson. They just made sense to me.
Yeah.
You know, and although here I am at 45 years old, and I feel like my career could have done other things, but I also look back and realize, how I've done some shit, you know. Yeah. But it's strange too, because I realized at an early age I always wanted to play with people that I liked, you know, and that liked me. And I was on, you know, the certain gigs where the stakes were higher and the people were different. Like, I grew up here in Austin, where one of the first 3 bands I was in was like a band I had in high school.
What was that?
This is a band called New World, and some guys that they're not even on the map.
What did you do?
I played drums, you know.
No, but like what kind of music?
We were all high school kids, and I met the lead singer, keyboard player, ended up being in All City Jazz Band, but he was not a jazz musician. He was more like a Billy Joel type,
right?
Pianist,
like
singer.
Yeah,
he's a pop guy. So we were playing pop tunes.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, like straight up rock pop tunes. We used to record. You know where the Austin Java is on South Lamar?
Yeah.
Right next door, there's this like pet place.
Yeah.
It used to be a studio.
Okay.
A really dinky.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I forget the name of it, but it was like shag carpet everywhere.
Yeah.
But that was our tracking room. We used to cut there all the time.
Okay.
And so yeah, we had rock records, you know. So that was the first band. And then I had a jazz group called Up Against the Wall with some UT musicians.
Wow.
And I was still in high school at that time, but I met Chris Marsh.
Oh, yeah.
And Chris was in the symphony, Austin Symphony. And my high school did a gig with the Austin Symphony. And I remember the only 2 people I saw in the whole symphony of 50 some odd people was this black woman playing violin and this young guy playing string bass, and it was Chris. I didn't meet him, you know. And I'm looking at him, and he's staring at me. I'm like, why is this motherfucker staring at me? And then like a week later, after the performance, I go to the band hall, and he's standing in the band hall with an electric bass at my high school with the saxophone player, and they're going, "Hey man, you want to jam?" I'm like, yeah. I'm like, "You that dude from the symphony?" He's like, "Yeah." So he took out the instruments. He had like this Yamaha like student line B bass, B something, I forget what it was, B500 or something. And and we just jammed in the band hall, at my high school. And so we started a band with some other guys. And then that branched into more gigs around town. And then I joined the business about a year after that, which was a cover band.
Right.
So from that band, those are my strongest contacts, even to this day. Larry Braggs, Selton Cole, Derek Edmondson, all the guys that were in the business, Morris Hayes, who wanted to play with Prince, what I'm saying? Like, all these guys were like my family, my big brother, John Lockhart, what I mean? Like, all those guys. And so, but we did everything together. We played 5 days a week, 6 days a week on 6th Street when 6th Street was happening. Yeah. But then on the day off, I'm at Derek's house. Right. I'm at LB's house. I'm at Selton's house. We never, like, being apart wasn't like, we never thought about it. So we grew up as family. We grew up as brothers. So when I started working out of LA.
When did that happen? Like in the 92, 93 or something?
From 90 to 95.
Okay.
I was out there. And prior to that, I was in a band in Memphis. There was also like a brotherhood, because it was an extension of the guys that were in the business. It was like a common member.
Right.
And so that mentality was a band mentality. Yeah. And we used to live in Kevin Page. He had like these 2 top 20 hits on Billboard, and we toured Japan, and we toured, this was like 1989, 1990. And
you're like a really young guy then. I mean, like 19.
Yeah, exactly.
20. Yeah.
So at that point, everything I knew set up the precedent for how I am now, because I really only want to work with people that I respect or that respect me in return. Sure. The mutual motion of that, right? Yeah. I got the LA stuff, and I still had the same Southern podunk mentality of like, oh, these guys I'm in a band with them, they're my friends, and that was not the case. And it bit me, rather dramatically around the 1993 era. 1990, that's when I got the Janet Jackson thing, and I realized that was not the mentality. So it really made me withdraw, because I was not going to compromise the way I felt about music and the way I felt about people to further my career. I mean, I could have stayed in LA.
Exactly what you mean.
I could have done all of that.
I think there are a lot of us that live here that have made a choice at one point when we were offered to, like, you can go forward, but you got to, the sacrifices. Give Satan a hand job or something.
The reach around, but there's definitely some sacrifices, which is not to say that even now there are a lot of important people in Los Angeles that I still are my friends. Of course, yeah. From that period, really important people. But also, and they looked out for me. Mark St. Louis, Terry Santillo. Mark was the tour manager for Sheena. Mm-hmm. Met him through some other mutual friends, and through Mark, I basically got the Sheena gig. I got the connection with the Shaka Khan gig. That which
how was that? That must have been
Shaka. Well, Shaka was like one of the most musical gigs I'd ever done, even to this day, in terms of being away from Austin. Because she really required me to be myself, but it was all about music. There was no flash. She had no production. You know what I'm saying? It's like we got on stage and just played. Yeah. And, she wanted us to be ourselves. She wanted us to play the shit out of whatever we did. The first day I got on the gig, we didn't rehearse with her. I rehearsed at the bass player's house, me and the keyboard player. And he and I subsequently flew down after like the first week of dates to audition for Janet from Berkeley, California. But anyway, was that Mark Stevens? So we went and like I went up on stage and I was setting up the drums. I just kind of was talking to Yamaha, so I had this Yamaha kit. I was setting it up and playing some beats and just making sure everything was right, and it's like just rolling around the toms and the snare and stuff, and I get off the drums and I walk down to the side of the stage, and Shaka's sitting there talking to Ike Turner. I'm like, oh shit. And I had, I met Shaka once in New York, like a month and a half before that, and gave her a cassette tape of myself.
That's cool.
And she was like, you got a tape? I was like, yeah. I handed her a tape. All right, baby, we'll be in touch. I like your look. She told me, whatever. I had like dreadlocks and stuff. And like, didn't think I'd hear anything from her. And then I did. I got the job. But, I got off stage, and the monitor engineer, is a guy named Paul. He walks over and he says, hello, Mrs. Khan, because he hadn't met her either. He's like, I'm your monitor man, and I like to, just kind of get your mix in order. If you want to go up, you don't have to. I can just dial it in now. But if you guys can tell me what you want, I can start putting it in, and we can work out on the set. Because it's going to be like a quick turnaround. And she says, oh, baby, I want to hear everything. And I was so used to hearing...
I just want to hear myself.
Sound...
Oh.
Uh-huh. No, I was so used to hearing, like, artists not really require snare...
Right.
Overhead, stuff like that in their monitor mix. Usually you might hear, I want some hat and a bass drum. A singer might say.
Right.
Might,
Yeah.
And she was like, I want to hear everything, including, his snare drum. Can you make sure that's up in my mix? Because, now mind you, she had not really heard me other than that tape and 5 minutes of sound check.
Yeah.
And she said, he plays a lot of intricate stuff on the snare, and I need to be able to hear everything he's doing so I can feed off of it. And at that minute, it scared the shit out of me. But then I realized she is a bad motherfucker.
Yeah.
Because
that just made it give me goosebumps.
Dude, she wanted to hear everything.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, I'm working with a genius. I'm working with someone at the top.
Yeah.
The level, her musicianship. And she showed that every night that she was the top.
Yeah.
And she was encouraging, she was a heartfelt woman, who really was about the music.
Yeah.
Period. So I was just thankful to be able to work with someone like that early.
Yeah, definitely.
And so when I got, other gigs that were like pop situations like that, it was like a little bit of a letdown because she was so raw and real.
Yeah.
In the moment. Just like we talk about the jazz musicians. Of course, she made jazz records, okay? She played with Stanley Clarke and Chick Corea and Lenny White and Joe Henderson and, all, made records with these people and shared stages with Miles Davis and Freddie Hubbard and she was in there.
Yeah.
Prodigies of Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan and studied what they did, how they delivered their carriage in music, and so anyway, she was just an amazing person for me to have experience with.
Yeah.
Oh,
and what great things! Like I bet you've learned so much from all the people that you played with.
Yeah, the biggest things that I've learned is a lot of subtle shit. Like just kind of knowing your place sometimes.
Yeah.
Because there's certain times where artists will require you to give more, and sometimes they don't need so much of you.
Yeah.
And so you have to know when. I know cats that are like they'll really absorb everything around them, and they will assimilate. They might dress like the cats just so that everybody feels comfortable.
Yeah.
Or I don't go that far, but like I've become aware of like the needs of people around me. So like I may show up to a session, like it's understood if I get called for a session, all right, you can play, all right, or there might be somebody in the room that
doesn't know yet, or
that wanted somebody else in the seat,
right?
But I might know this. It might be very clear to me that they wanted their buddy, the person that they're used to, or their LA drummer, or their whomever. I often come into situations where I'm not the first person that they wanted, you know. So you learn quickly how to be yourself and assert yourself, but in a very Zen way, almost like, moving energy around so that you can create a sense of balance and comfort without having to strong arm anybody into liking or respecting you. So I might go into a country session or a rock session, and I might set the drums up, and I'm not gonna play every goddamn lick I know. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna jazz it out. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't want people going, "It's the wrong guy for the gig." Yeah. So those are chops.
Yeah.
That people don't talk about. Those are that's experience.
Yeah.
So you go in and you assess the situation and what the vibe is with the people that are paying you or that are playing with you. And, I've been around enough great musicians that if a bass player plugs in and plays 2 notes, I can hear the tone. I know what I need to do as a drummer. You know, how, what sticks I need, what beater I need, like what, I know this. I know these things. So why so the other musicians have to be aware, just as aware of me as I am of them. Right. At least I make that assumption sometimes. I know that there are some great people out here. So I know that I don't need to expose myself fully and wholly. Right. Other than just by being my person. Yeah. So a lot of times I'm just able to, fit in. God, because of an attitude. Yeah.
So many people never learn that. It's so weird. And it's interesting to hear someone express it like you have. It's very clear. Yeah. And it's like, how can you not know that? How can you not walk in and listen?
Yeah. Another thing too is I don't get too bogged down with the idea of I gotta sound like me, I gotta be like me. One of the gigs I had was with Boz Skaggs, right? So I jump in on Boz's gig. And the thing about Boz is he's very, very soft singer. He doesn't have a lot of projection power in his voice. He's a pretty decent guitar player, and he's known as a blues guy. I mean, he's from Texas, the whole nine. And like very classy man, And but he knows exactly what he wants. And one of those things is for better or for worse, he wants his buddy to still be alive, which is Jeff Porcaro. Yeah. One of the, most celebrated session drummers of our time, right?
Fucking architect of the Lido Shuffle.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Just talk about his tunes in particular. Yeah. So everything that came out of me needed, down to the drum tone, needed to exemplify the embodiment of Jeff Porcaro's approach. Yeah. So having said that, there was a day of sound check where we spent 2 hours of him drilling the fuck out of me of playing everything specific. Yeah. Jeff Porcaro. And this is, everybody is on the bandstand at the rehearsal, the whole band. And he's facing me. And I'm behind fishbowl, the plexiglass, because he's very sensitive. Yeah. I'm playing with almost the lightest sticks I've ever used, not playing any hard rim shots. I'm playing, everything is in the center of the drum, which is innately it's a fatter sound, but it's a softer sound. Right. Cymbals, I'm really And after the second gig, he comes up to me and he's like, Brannen, man, you really did your homework, man. I really like your light touch. I like how you tune your drums. He's got everything. Same thing like Shaka.
Yeah.
Everything is in his ears across the board.
Yeah.
And he's very sensitive to, everything that's happening. So 2 hours go by and I was just like, oh, what do you mean, like this? Boom, boom. No. Like this? No. Okay, well, let me try one more time. Can you give me can I just play it? Can I utilize the band? Can we all play it together? Sure. So I count off, played the whole thing. And this went on, like I said. So the next day I'm at breakfast with the guitar player at the time, this guy named Drew. And Drew played with Steely Dan and all these cats. And he also had to deal with Boz's idiosyncrasies of being exact, But he was like, Brannen, man, I don't know how you did it. I'd have been so fucking hot and frustrated, but you kept your cool the entire time. And I said, you know why? He's like, no, because I would have been furious.
Yeah, why?
He's like, I was mad for you.
Yeah,
I was frustrated for you.
Yeah.
I was like, let me tell you why. Because at the end of the day, I'm still me. I still know what I'm capable of. It's like whether or not I can give you exactly what you want, I'm going to do my best because, I don't take it personally that I don't mean this in a bad way to Boz because I really respect him.
Yeah.
I've actually talked to him even after I did the gig. It was no longer on the gig. I reached out to him. Hey, I'm in town. Can you come out? Are you around? How you doing?
Yeah.
Always cordial. He's always a gentleman. He's an amazing man.
Yeah.
And once again, but I was like, dude, man, it's not my fault that his idea of the perfect drummer was also one of his best friends. Yeah. So not to say that he's stuck, but that's where he's at.
Yeah.
That's just where he's at.
Sure.
So I did my best to help. And man, there was some incredible drummers in the chair before me and since me.
Yeah.
Incredible, mind blowing cats. Oh my God. And but out of all of the chairs, that was the hottest seat. Yeah. So it wasn't me. How could I take it personal?
Of course. Yeah.
That you fired this guy, and these are my heroes too.
Yeah.
And you didn't like them. So it's not personal.
No.
It's not personal that you want to drill me for 2 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see what I can bring out. Maybe I'll learn something. That was my attitude. Maybe I'll figure something out.
That's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
I don't deal with that shit as well.
No, and a lot of people don't, but the musical director, he didn't have much to say about it, but he was just like, good job, man.
Yeah.
That's all he said. Richard, he played bass with Miles Davis, he was just like, and he told me a story about Miles one time. He said that when he first got the gig, he didn't have much verbal communication with Miles. And about the third gig, Miles comes up to him because Miles was never a sound check. Miles would show up 15 minutes before the hit, play the gig.
Yeah.
Limo, car service, waiting right after the gig. No hang really afterwards. Maybe light instructions, maybe.
Yeah.
And then he'd bounce. And then the band would go on with the band bus or whatever, or the van back to the hotel. But before this one show, and it was one of the first ones that Richard played, Miles comes up to him and he's kind of warming up behind him. And he says, hey, on the third song, second chorus of my solo, I want you to play this. And mind you, there's no context. We're about to play in third song. I'm fresh to the band. What is the third song?
Yeah.
What key is that? What is the normal bass line? So he gives him this line to play. Plays a line in his ear, and he's like, "Okay, you got it? Yeah, sure, I got it. No, I don't got it." Yeah. So Miles walks off, and he's like, sweating. He's like, oh my God, man, how the fuck am I supposed to remember that shit?
Yeah.
I'm already thinking about the entirety of the show.
Right, right.
And I guess I know I'm supposed to do these things. I'm supposed to do these things. So what he said was he was stressed, like just tight. And then right when that section came up, he just was like, fuck it. And just played something different. And what he noticed was that everybody else had to adjust. The drummer couldn't play the same bass drum pattern anymore because it didn't fit. And he was the type of drummer that I grew up mimicking, famously trying to match the bass information with the bass drum information,
yeah.
Whether it was a counterpoint or a specific lock,
Right.
Under that, the relationship. So understandably, that kind of drummer is going to respond differently, which meant that, rhythmically, the comping can't be specifically the same because the structure is different now. So now the keyboard player has to play different comping.
Right.
Well, what does that mean? He gets to play something different on top as Miles because everybody else is searching.
Right.
So now it's not stale for him as the star of the show.
Right.
And that's all he wanted. He didn't want Richard to play specific. He just wanted to fuck his head up to play something different.
Yeah.
He always wanted to keep them on their toes so that nobody treated it like a cover band, like
right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
a specific. We play it this way each time.
Yeah.
Keep it moving. Keep it moving.
Yeah.
So he told me that story, and it made me feel good because he was just like, he did what he was supposed to, just like I did. I did what I was supposed to.
Yeah.
And it's not personal. The artist is looking for how they can present their show the best that they can.
Yeah.
So I didn't take it personally.
That's great.
Yeah. Same thing with the Dixie Chicks. I mean, like, Natalie, it's very, very, very specific.
Yeah.
She's an incredible musician.
Yeah.
Same thing. Really demanding.
Yeah.
But she also, there's nothing I could take personal.
Right.
Just, what do you want? Okay. Like this? No? Okay. What about like this?
Yeah.
And I don't bullshit and play the same thing twice, just to make them to see if they're really listening.
Right.
I'm not that selfish. I'll just I'll change it up. And they'll go, yeah, maybe. Okay. Well, if that's not it, how about this?
Right.
That's all. That is a chop. That is a tool.
Yeah.
Sensitivity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like it's one thing that that comes from having to be an improvisational, like having to listen. Like when I was even listening to your Temple Underground record, the latest one, that's on iTunes with the black and white cover. I have a couple questions about that. There's not there. It's as I don't know if it's just as a musician, but when I'm listening to it, I can hear you guys listening to each other.
Sure.
And that's how you're navigating this thing, because it's not all laid out, right?
It really wasn't.
No.
Yeah. It was a snapshot.
Yeah. Yeah. Where did you do that?
Where?
Yeah. Here in town?
Joe Carroll.
Okay.
Who used to be a doorman at the Saxon.
Yeah.
Has a recording studio, modest setup at his house, nice mics.
Yeah.
And we stood at his house
and
mostly.
You set up live.
Yes.
And played. Who sang on that?
James Robinson.
Okay.
James is from Memphis.
I know him.
Yeah, he's an incredible musician in that he is very comfortable with the unknown element. He doesn't need things to be so specific that it's mapped out around him. He's much like what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Just really comfortable. So his contribution, it really was an equal part. It wasn't like, in a weird way, even those songs, you think about them showcasing the storyline, which is the vocalist and the singer and the melody, even though we did that in a general sense, I still felt like he was inside of the band and not us just supporting him.
Right.
even, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was a really organic approach.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of credit just goes to him as a musician, you know, and to be willing and open-minded.
Open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's incredible.
When do you remember a couple months ago when I accosted you on the street after your gig with Ephraim in front of the gallery
About connecting.
about a drum solo? Yeah.
Yeah.
All of that, the whole group that was playing blew my mind, but there's these moments that you go to when you're playing drums that blow my mind. I don't even know what's I don't know if you're counting in your head or if you're just like floating in this rhythm that's happening within you. Does that sound weird? Did I say that night? Because I was kind of drunk, and I just remember like how it's almost like a magic trick. Like I'm a musician too. Theoretically, we're in the same industry, but I have no idea what you're doing when you're doing that.
Yeah, man. You know what's weird about that whole thing is it's just we all have imagination.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, man, what you do too is so fucking creative to me. You know what I mean? It's like for you to be able to sit down, you know, pen an entire idea and put that out. It takes a lot of courage.
Sure.
It's a lot of creativity, a lot of humility. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of it's a lot of things, a lot of elements that come into play in doing that. It's like, and not everybody can do what you do. Not everybody can do this. You know what I'm saying? Artistry.
Right.
But we all have our own gifts. We all have our own sense of what makes us us. And I don't even think that I'm not saying that what I'm doing is not special. And what I mean by that is that I'm very thankful, you know, for what it is, who I am, you know, and however I got to this point. But I also feel like it's just part of my willingness or desire to have fun, be a part of the reindeer games. You know what I'm saying? I just want to be a part of it. So, however I can challenge myself, and I really try to stay unselfish with it too. You know, like really try to like, okay, I'm supporting you, but I'm gonna also give a little something extra so that maybe we can end up further than we thought we'd go. Yeah. And that's all it is. Yeah. Yeah. Real simple.
How do you, do you still do Blaze?
Blaze? No, we have, no.
Okay, but you still do Temple Underground.
Temple Underground.
And you still do Black, Red, Black.
Black, Red,
which
Black.
I've seen.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty much it in town.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. And then otherwise you just tour?
Well, I mean, you know, I still play gigs, a couple different things. But yeah, it's funny, man, because on a lot of levels, like I'm like the old guy now, you know. It's like cats and everybody, you know, people in my band are like younger than me, you know.
I'm still confused by that, like because we've become the old.
Yeah, we're the cats that people are checking out. You know, like, you know what I mean? It's like when I was a kid, I was checking out this guy and this guy, like, oh, okay, like, oh, wow, you know. And now people are like looking at me. I mean, you know, there's a lot of it that I embrace because I'm always into sharing. You know, I think a lot of people, and man, you know, we grow up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like we have periods where maybe we were a little more self-conscious and a little more closed and less inclusive, you know, and whatever growing pains that we all have as young musicians, young artists, you know. But then once you get to a certain age and hopefully mentality, you know, you broaden that. And I just see all the people that have shared with me. Yeah. There's no way I'd be here if it wasn't for like Stephen Bruden and you know, all the cats like that. Yeah. You know, people that I've toured with over the year, Robin Ford, you know what I'm saying? Like people that have just opened up their lives to me, their personal lives. You know, that I've seen them excuse me, as men and women inside of struggle, you know, personal struggle, musical struggle, industry struggle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And to be able to talk to them and watch them navigate. You know, some of the best teachers I've had are the ones that I've played with. But right there, I was right there with them when they were going through this or that. You know, and
that's amazing.
You know,
Yeah.
So why shouldn't the young cats look at us that way?
Yeah.
And that's it.
It's just weird because I've never thought of myself. I still think of myself as the same. You know, I'm still kind of 23 in my mind.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you.
Man, those guys are like Steven, I got to spend time with and always was so grateful to.
Man.
And very cognizant of the fact that I was around someone that was really special. Robin's a great guy too. I got to hang out with him.
No kidding.
Yeah, I opened for him for a couple of days, and he was just really nice. I guess because Roscoe was playing with him.
Yeah.
And then I ran into him at a rehearsal place in LA, and we were both in there for a week, and every day we would hang out. And like, yeah, he's such a nice guy, such a fucking amazing musician too. I watched a whole thing of you guys in Paris this morning, like a whole thing from like 2005 or something.
Yeah, that was weird. That was a loud gig. It was hot too. It was hot in the New Morning. That was supposed to be
The New Morning. Yeah, that's the name.
That was supposed to be an in-house documentary.
Oh, really?
And it turned out to be a full production DVD for Robin. You know, they gave it to him because they aired it on Parisian TV, and then just gave him the rights to put it out.
Wow.
Know? But that show, that was it was early in that particular tour as well. I remember the music was still kind of newish, you know. One of the tunes I realized was not fully realized. We were still in the process of working it out, you know, because the version that he eventually recorded. And then that was another issue. He was going through some record company issues, and the record company recorded like 4 tunes of his. I didn't play on it, but they recorded these tunes and then dropped them and kept those masters.
Oh.
So then he couldn't use that version, you know what I mean, to put out.
Right.
Then he lost momentum with the feeling of the tune, so he just kind of moved on past the material, but we still played it from time to time. And at that point, I wasn't his main drummer. I was kind of in and out. And but the tune had developed. I saw the tune develop, you know, like the form of the tune, like. And so that process was really interesting. You know, so anyway, just being around musicians and seeing how they put their shit together, you know, what makes them do what they do, you know, struggles and just and the triumphs, you know, too.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that when you're listening to music now, you're probably learning stuff that you need to learn for something. Do you do that a lot?
Yeah.
What do you listen to? And how do you listen to? Because guys our age could still be with the vinyl, could still be, you know, with a CD player in the car or Spotify.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you mean specifically like what mediums?
There's a good.
Well, I don't currently have a record player, so which is another thing in music industry wise. It really bums me out how. You know, when you talk about Grammys and we talk about where we are in the industry right now, you know, it's wide open for us because there are no record companies, but then there are these corporations that sort of, you know, make us have to listen to, you know, Macklemore and whatever else, Beyonce and Jay-Z or whatever, and they tell us that that's what music is all about, you know, and we didn't grow up that way, so we know better.
Yeah.
But it's really frustrating for you, dude. You have a nice piano. I'm sitting looking. I'm 2 foot away from your. It looks awesome, right? You got gear here, you know.
Yeah.
And you've crafted. You've learned so much, you know, how to put your stuff together, you know, with how to sonically,
Yeah.
Years of education, self-education or visually
Watching
learning,
other people. Yeah.
yeah, collaborating, all this stuff, and got nice NS10s or whatever. You got all your stuff together,
Yeah.
and then you take these rough ideas, and then you go into a studio, or not even rough idea. You might do the whole thing right here, but then you might want to add real drums. You go,
Yeah.
have the bass have some air on it. Nice studio with a nice board, and then the end result is we hear it through a phone speaker.
Yeah.
That's about, and it's like, what does it matter if we spent, $3,000 for 3 songs on mastering? It's like,
still going to be played through a phone speaker.
Yeah, it's terrible, man. Like home stereo systems, man, when we were growing up, it was all about that, nice
Hi-fi.
speakers, hi-fi,
Yeah.
But like the consumer market is such that it's been so dumbed down that not even like our industry has been marginalized, so far away from what we spend all of our lives, trying to produce and create. And it's heartbreaking in a lot of ways, because it's nothing like, man, just think about the days of when that record's about to come out and you just like, the release date of and you want to go buy that and hold the vinyl. I mean, we're going back to vinyl now and stuff. That's more popular, but not like it was.
No, it was the only medium. People really didn't have many cassettes.
And you're holding it, and you open up the cover, and you're looking at pictures, and you're looking at lyrics, and man, who played on that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Who
man.
is this Jim Keltner?
Yeah,
I think I asked myself that when I was 13 one time. Like, who this guy's everywhere.
Exactly. You know, but why do you know he's everywhere? Because you see the name.
Yeah, same with
on
Jeff
a
Porcaro.
record.
I remember, yeah.
Exactly. You see it. So it's like, well, nowadays, if you get an MP3, you have no clue who's playing.
Yeah,
on
that's
anything.
a weird thing.
You don't know who took the picture. Even you don't know who.
Yeah.
And then the artwork is
so
like,
small.
Yeah, it's like there's no.
Smaller than an
magic.
inch now. Yeah.
There's no magic. It's the mystery is there's no way to find out. I mean, I guess you could go online and really research it, but it's not there in your hands. The experience is so different right now. I'm like half sick over it, most of the time because, so I've gotten to this thing now where I'm trying to catalog with James, the singer we're talking about, the gigs that we do together and do it live. Like a lot of boards now, thankfully, are digitized boards.
Yeah.
So we can get board mixes.
Right.
And, hopefully if the sound engineer of the evening got decent tones or everything was recorded in a way where we can go back and maybe check it out, So I'm trying to like catalog everything on hard drive. And like, eventually I'm going to go back and listen and see, okay, well, what's there,
Yeah.
And maybe try to, do certain new tunes live as opposed to going into the studio and making a studio record again. It's like, well, everything's wide open for us. We can do anything.
Yeah.
Anything we can imagine. That is the great thing about now. We can do. I mean, we're limited by money, finances and wide range distribution. But more than anything, we're only limited by our imagination because resources are there. I started realizing that one of my biggest tools was my brain on how to like put together things without the conventional resources.
Right.
So, and I see so many young people that get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah.
And they're not making more than they don't know more than I know.
Yeah.
But they might be tapped into technology or whatever's happening in the now.
Yeah.
And us in our 40s, we were then, but now, so I have to look at the young cast and like, well, how did they put that out? Like, what did you do? You know? So I just kind of go back to and check it out,
It's interesting. And you have kids, huh? Mm-hmm. How do they, do they have phones or what do they do when they listen to music?
My son is 8. He's always begging me for a phone, but I haven't gotten him one. But
does he get to come see you play?
Sometimes, yeah.
What does he think?
Well, it was funny because I play at this church on a weekly basis, and I got them singing with the kids choir.
Oh, cool.
So now they're a part of that experience, which makes it kind of cool because they're both really outgoing children.
Yeah.
And everybody after the service is always talking about how my daughter is just like stealing the show.
Yeah.
She's very, let's call it sassy, and so they enjoy it. They know what Daddy does, and I needed them to be. I'm thankful to have that church job or that church gig where they can really see and understand it and be a part of it, and not just, well, I can't sleep with Daddy tonight because he's got to go to a job, and why is Daddy out of town? You know, it's like I used to tell my son when he was like 4 years old. He's like, I don't like when you go out of town. I was like, well, why not? He said, well, you're not here. I get a chance. You can't put me to bed. Can't read me stories. And I was like, but guess what? It's like, if I didn't go, what's your favorite meal?
Yeah.
Chicken and rice. Okay, well, what else do you like? You like cookies? You like these things? Well, Daddy's got to pay for that stuff. Yeah. So he grasped the idea, but it became way better once he was able to like put his hands on the drums and then have the experience. Like he's in drum lessons now and stuff like that. So I don't teach him. I have somebody else do it. I got Jeff Ryder.
Okay,
Jeff,
that's a good drummer.
At the drum shop.
Yeah.
Helping me work with him. So that's funny.
You didn't want to be the teacher because you didn't.
Well, you kind of have to be like, you have to step back a little bit because I need him to come to whatever he's going to come to on his own terms. My dad allowed that with me, and he's not even a musician. My dad was, again, an athlete. And even though my dad would do his best to expose me to basketball, because that was his love, expose me to track and field.
He let you find your own way.
Yeah, he never forced anything, He said the first time he took me to see the Harlem Globetrotters, he was like, you like the game? He turned down, he looked down, and I was like playing in the seats. I wasn't even watching the game. He was like, oh, my gosh, my son is not going to be an athlete, And I think he struggled with that for a second until a few years later I found music, and then he realized, holy shit, my son is actually good. So then I see him showing up to my stuff with his chest stuck out.
Yeah.
Tucking in his shirt. Yeah, that's my boy up there.
Yeah.
So
dude, I had that same kind of thing with my grandpa. He's a doctor. I mean, I'll show you. I mean, someday I'll show you. It's a hilarious photograph of me at like 4 years old with like, he had a medical, white medical coat made for me.
Oh,
and like
cool.
I had a real stethoscope and like a real medical bag and all this shit.
You know how cool that is?
Yeah, it's super cool. But then when I got older, my interest changed, and he was like, and then when he saw that I felt the same way about music that he felt about medicine and helping people, then he was like, oh, okay. And he was the same kind of thing. He's like, yeah, it's my grandson.
Yeah, he related to the passion, your walk, and as adults, man, it's great for, your loved ones, your people you grew up under, to be able to be happy for you.
Yeah.
And just take that and go, oh yeah, boom, do it. So I try to give that to my kids, at every point, every turn,
Yeah.
So
listen, this isn't bullshit at all. This has been like one of my very favorite conversations I've ever had.
Wow.
This is really like amazing.
Awesome. I got to say, man, I when you approach me, because man, you've been trying to talk to me for like a year or more now,
Yeah.
And scheduling has been kind of. I don't mean it that way.
No.
But I mean it like in a weird way. I didn't know what to expect, and I guess I had sort of. you know, it's important to mention this too, man. It's like, you know, something about being human or being an artist or being, you know, is like our level of self-doubt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like we doubt ourselves a
Yeah.
lot, you know, a lot more than people realize, because we're on stage and it looks like we're living out our dreams and we're having fun, and, you know, we look popular, and, you know, you got girl, you got the ladies, you got the this, that, and whatever the case may be with people, how they view us, you know. But, you know, we all have our obvious insecurities. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's what makes us us, you know. So, I was maybe mildly intimidated at the possibility of the exposure, which is crazy. You know what I mean?
Course.
Because you want the exposure.
Yeah.
It's an active part of what we're dealing with today with social media.
Yeah.
And just getting our name out there. You know, I'm an Austin native, you know, but there's still people that are like, you know, that might see me and be like, well, who is that guy? I've never heard of him. Right. You know what I'm saying? So they could be new to town or whatever, or have been here for 10 years and just never seen a performance of mine. And then they see it and go, oh man, where's this guy been? You know? So, and sometimes that comes not from the same gigs that I've been doing, but maybe taking a gig with you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or playing a gig over here with this person that I might not have done, and all of a sudden there's a new fan, or there's a new outlet, or there's a new venue, just from us taking a chance for whatever reason that might be. I just might have just needed that money that night. You know what I'm saying? I took the gig, but now I have a new avenue. Yeah. You know, or whatever the case is. But yeah, you know, we have our own demons. We have our own struggles, you know, that we have to face. And you inviting me into this, I was nervous about, because the way I view you and the way I view the peers, like say us like 15 years ago, like you know, the scene that you were in at the time, you know, the rock thing, you know, it's like you guys were it. You were on top in town. You know what I'm saying? It's like what you were doing. It was cool and impressive, but I didn't realize, like as an adult, I realized as musicians and even further as humans, we all have more in common than we think.
Yeah, that's why I started this show, so I wouldn't feel so alone in my neuroses. And
neuroses, exactly. Yeah. You know, so it's like we have more that we can relate to, and more we can share and learn from. Yeah, and feel less like our own islands, like you say, and just like, oh yeah, and then just support. And it's like, even if, you know, it's like you apologizing for not coming to my gig or whatever, man, that's cool. I mean, you've just invited me into your house. That's even better. You know what I'm saying?
Good.
So it's like,
good. Yeah. Well, you're always welcome here, man.
Yeah, brother. I mean,
I've always had.
Good.
It's funny that you say that, because during that time, there was guys that would go to Flipnotics every day for coffee, and like JJ would be there, John D, George Reef, these kind of dudes. And I remember one day I went there, and I can't remember, I was meeting someone or something, but I was always really intimidated by you just because you're quiet. And I had heard when you were in LA, I heard all about you. Like that's when I started playing at Steamboat and
Steamboat
and meeting
days.
all these different people.
That was an important time, important club.
When your name would come up, there was like this, you know, oh, Brannen, like he's the guy, and all that. Then I was always scared that guys that were really cool wouldn't like me, and so one day I went to Flipnotics. And I was walking up, and you like looked up, and you're like, "Hey, man!" I can't remember if you said, "Hey, Johnny," if you said, "Hey, man," but you were like, "Oh, hey, man," and I was like, "Hey," and then I went in to get my coffee, and the whole time I was in there, I was like, "All right, so I'm just gonna go out there and sit at his table with him and be like, hey, what's up, Brannen? How you doing, man?" But when I went out there, you already gone.
Oh, shit.
But I spent like 10 minutes like psyching myself up to talk to you. But then as I've gotten to know you a little bit, this has been great. I've always wanted to talk to you for a long time.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
No, thank you for coming, and people should get out there and see what you do.
Hey, brother, man, I just really appreciate you for what you're doing. Because actually, I've had friends that have been talking about your podcast.
That's cool.
And I'm thankful that you asked me to do it. And everybody's been super positive,
good,
and encouraging about what you're doing with this.
Thank you.
Not only about your music, but just about you wanting to catalog these people's stories of these relationships that you have, or the relationship that we have to music, or to artistry, and to this. I congratulate you.
Thank you, man.
Hell yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
And that, my friends, is why I do this show. Definitely top 5 shows ever. Great conversation with Brannen Temple. What an amazing dude. Find him at brannentemple.com. Get out and see him play. His band's Black, Red, Black, Temple Underground. They play around. Sometimes you'll see him playing with someone else. I suggest going to see him play. Sometimes he plays with Ephraim at the Continental Club Gallery. Amazing. It's transcendent. The guy can take you to a place that you've never been. All right? I hope he did during this conversation. He did for me. I am like high from that conversation. I even threw on my Max Roach Clifford Brown album after he left, because I was like, damn, man, I need to start listening to that music more, some of that jazz. Getting inundated. That was like a masterclass in jazz, a masterclass in cool. Thank you, Brannen, for coming by. Go to brannentemple.net. Find out where he's playing, what he's doing. Check him out. Okay, and while you're out there checking out Brannen Temple, don't forget that you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, and you can like our Facebook page, see photos of us. I forgot to take a picture with Brannen. I need to catch up with him and take a photo with him before this comes out. Okay, hey, thank you so much for listening. Let's hear some more music from Temple Underground. Brannen Temple was a great guest. Look for more conversations in the future. Obviously, every Tuesday, every Friday. All right, let's hear some more music from Temple Underground. Thank you, Brannen, for coming by. Thank you, Amanda, for setting this up. All right, let's get down.
We shall overcome. Rise up. We shall overcome. Rise up, yeah. Martin and Malcolm. One day, yeah. We shall overcome. Martin and Malcolm. One day we shall overcome. Just keep your pride alive. We gotta keep our pride alive. Any way that you can, keep your pride alive. Yeah. Just keep on walking and keep on talking and keep on moving and keep on breathing and do what you wanna do. Do what you gotta do. Do what you want to do. What you gotta do. Keep on walking and keep on breathing. Keep on walking, talking, living. One day,